Okay, it's Friday night, and this is going to be a real short one. Two reasons. One is I need to start trying to make them shorter, um, because too much information at one time isn't working. But also, I've there's a couple of things here I've got to make clear is that that we can't mess around. That what some of you are wanting to try or going to want to try is um, to fight what's been going on. You look at the servicer and look what he's done to me, and look what that attorney for the lender. None of that counts. None of it. The note. Oh, where's the note? Don't look for the note. You're not. You can't find it. And if you do, all you've done is made it more complicated. You don't have to find the note. So we're going to talk about three things that um, the burden of proof has been placed on the borrowers, us, all along. And when I say things, I'm not going to tell you I'm smarter than you. I've been doing this a really long time to get to the point where I can say we're making it way, way, way too hard. And we were forced kind of like a train speeding up and speeding up and speeding up, and it's coming at us. And you guys are all smart enough. I don't think I've ever had a client that didn't kind of understand. At the very worst, they still understood something was wrong and they didn't know how to stop it. Um, and it's that um, our need to do it and their need to, the other guys, they don't care how long this takes. They're going to try to all get new boats by taking all the money out of a couple million houses, and that's going to happen this year. This is going to be something is going on. Um, so the things that kind of wipe your mind clean, because in a little bit I'm going to tell you, don't bring me any of these um, theories about when you were born. Somebody put some money in your checking account and it's yours, and the government's taking it, and there's a big conspiracy about the whole thing. Don't that ain't going to go here, because it's not. I don't have any idea if it's true. I'm telling you this, that if we go find my dad and if he was still alive, he would tell us, no, I'd know if you got a check when you were a baby, when you were born. I would have taken it from you. That's what he would say. There, this is easier than that, and not as hard as it seemed like it should be. But these are the main things. The burden of proof was never on the borrower to prove that there was a fraudulent um, um, scheme headed his way. A fraudulent scheme that was headed his way. Um, and you thought it, and I thought it. We've all thought it, and nobody's doing anything about it. These guys are lying, or you're confused by the fact that you really did get behind. And COVID got people behind, but that didn't mean they get foreclosed on. It means that that somebody wants to do a forbearance. There's no money in foreclosing unless you're taking all the whole house, even though you don't owe that much, and that you're faking the foreclosure. You're not giving the borrower, the owner of the house, you're selling his house, but you're not giving him any reconciliation. There's no accounting done and given to you that says, here's what we sold it for and here's how much you owed. You know, because I'm doing a deal now, right now, the one that I'm trying to complete, $700,000 house. They paid cash for it and later borrowed the money because of something they wanted to do for a whole lifetime. And so they borrowed, in the $200,000 range. Okay. And that was only 5 years ago. How far can you get behind? Can you get a $500,000 behind? Okay. They're, I went to their foreclosure sale. there was no one there. There was an auctioneer there from the successor trustee, and that would be a sheriff if you're in a judicial foreclosing state. And the rules said, and they made up a frequently asked questions, and they you could go online and you could see it. You could see your house, and you could see the sale date, and then um, bidders that wanted to bid on your house could look at their frequently asked questions. How can I be a bidder on this house? Attend the sale. Okay, that was all the rules. Attend the sale. Be there. Don't try to send us a letter with a check in it. Don't send a wire. You're going to have to pay with cashier's check, and you've got till 4:30 this afternoon, and the sale's at 2:30. That's real normal rules. So how come is it that somebody gets foreclosed on and they don't get this reconciliation? Well, they did for 250 years, and that's only if you're going back to the start of America. You know, it was that way before the Magna Carta. The Romans did it that way. You don't get penalized more money than you owe. And if you've paid on something for a long time, or if you didn't get a very large loan against the value of your house, then you've got money coming back. The remainder goes to the borrower, the lender, or whoever owns the debt. And I say that because the promissory note is evidence of the debt. It's the debt is the thing. How much money you owe is what we're talking about. So there's three things that we have to talk about right now, because they're going to come up first. I'm going to tell you what we're going to need, and it's because of the scheme they're running. And if you've already been foreclosed, it doesn't change the rules of getting your house back and maybe getting a lot of damages. You know, we have an odd thing going on right now. We have people trying to tear the country to shreds and put a dictator in. Where's Castro when we need him? But what it's done is it's awakened the federal courts. Federal courts were just as bad as the state courts for me up until 2019. And the the federal courts, they were trying to buy a boat too. And that's my slang for somebody's taking money and doing something with it, because there's no reason on earth. Some of the things happening in the Republican Party right now, and there's my parents, me, Republican my whole life. I don't like anybody right now because nobody's trying to help borrowers, and this is the biggest problem. Our houses, 30 million of them. Okay, and the one thing I always want to tell this story. I looked it up. There were 49 foreclosures in Jackson County, Missouri in 1994. 49 for the year. That's about 700,000 people. And 49 foreclosures. That's probably about right for the population. But with the repeal of the law that was the regulation for Wall Street in 1999, there was no regulation on Wall Street anymore. They didn't put anything back, nothing. They still haven't. That's what Dodd-Frank was supposed to be, and it didn't do it because everybody cut on it as it went by until there's nothing left but just bone. And so the problem's not getting better; it's getting worse. It's getting worse. You know that your kids don't have it as well as you did. When I got out of college, anyone could get a job. Kids that were standing next to the kids that went to college got hired too because they looked like they might have gone to college, and for good money. And it's going to be worse for grandkids, my grandkids. It's going to be worse for them if we don't do something. So I'm already going too long. Here's the things that you have no burden to prove that you've been defrauded, because the framers thought of that stuff. The Constitution, which I can't say I could have told you I was a constitutional scholar 10 years ago. I knew that it was important. I knew that our laws were built on it, but I didn't think about anybody trying to tear them up and throw them away. It never occurred to me. And so the framers did not want a litigious society. They didn't want people suing people with frivolous suits. Exactly what's happening to us. We're all being foreclosed on someone who has nothing to do with your house, nothing to do with your debt, nothing to do with your loan. That doesn't mean you didn't get a loan. It doesn't mean you don't owe money. It's that um, the people, the cast of characters, I call them, the play, the characters in the play that's playing out in front of you, they were just hired to play. It's kind of like thinking, that SLS is in Disneyland and he's Mickey the Mouse. But the guy that's Mickey, that's not Mickey Mouse. There's someone in there running, making it go. That's exactly what we're seeing. A cast of characters, and they are unable to, because it's not possible, they are unable to come up with proof that you owe them money. Now they can prove you owed money. They know that there was a note. That's what the servicer does. The servicer knows, that you owe a certain amount of money you're supposed to pay every month, but that doesn't mean the servicer can foreclose on you. That's what, like an SLS is doing. And here's one of your characters, SLS. I know that of them as specialized loan servicing. And there's a lot of people that know them as SLS, then specialized loan servicing. Now they're new res. It's formerly known as SLS, specialized loan servicing, new res LLC. What did they do that for? It's because they're getting sued all over the country. These guys do lose sometimes. I've been winning, um, and I just had to do it a different way. I had to forget the things I thought were true and deal with the laws that I'd been given. And I was told, here's the remedy for your problem, Danny. So that's what we're doing. Now it's formerly known as New Res LLC. Now it's a specialized specialized loan servicing SLS, New Res LLC, doing business as ShellPoint. That's all the same character, but he's playing different parts, so they don't have to pay so much or whatever. But that's what those are the ones I've seen lately. Those are actually fairly new to me. Aquin's what I'm from that era, 2010. So you don't have a burden. Your burden is this. You have to say, I have never been in default with any of these characters. We'll say it a little different than that, but not very much. And so that's what I want you to know. They have a burden, and their burden is this: standing. You've heard of it a lot. Some of you may think you understand it, and I'm willing to bet that you don't. Standing comes from the doctrine. It's called Article 3. Article 1 is Congress. Article 2 is the executive, the president. Article 3 is federal law. And then the states have their own laws, and there's a lot of states and state judges and state attorneys and whatever that believe that a state law is more powerful than a federal law. That is simply never true, never, not ever. Um, and that's what they'll do when you try to do a motion to them like they did. They'll complain. Well, they're not using state law. They have to use state law. Because those are courts of a general jurisdiction, not limited jurisdiction like federal law. Federal law is limited jurisdiction, only federal law. But the state judge, he has jurisdiction over federal law as long as he uses federal law to do federal law. But he's also over like fighting after 2 a.m. on a Thursday night, drinking at church, speeding, stealing, knocking over garbage cans. That's general jurisdiction, sewer court, is what I call it. So don't let that get in your way. I'm going to be going, if we do this thing that we're talking about, and that's if somebody just started listening to this, you don't know why I'm doing this. But we're talking about, trying to do this simply, affordably, and I can't possibly do more than 2 or 3 at a time if I'm dealing with each individual and doing every single thing there's to do. I think that I can put it together like an assembly line where you're doing it and you're doing it as we go and making notes, because we're going to try to get back and forth with you. We're not going to do like the guys that try to sell you a template and then you get the template and you're just supposed to fill it in and then turn it into the court. But what are you going to do when you have a hearing? Or how are you going to fill it in? I don't. I have contempt for those people. So what we're going to do is that we're going to try to be where after each class or each whatever we call this, um, that that you're going to be able to send it in and say, how does this look? You know, or we'll find a mechanism for that. You'll be able to talk to somebody. You'll be able to talk to me. But remember, if this happens to have a lot of people, that's my whole problem now. Is I don't really have time. People are mad at. They're not mad at me. They should be, but no, they shouldn't. I mean, I this is way, way, way against the law. What's going on? And due process is the word you're hearing, and due process is what it takes to have standing. And the federal courts are paying attention to it right now because this scared the shit out of them. You know, they were helping, you know, bend the laws. And I'm going to tell you, borrowers, this thing is so big. This is where the transfer of wealth went. So many people since the year 2000 to 25 years. In 25 years, 30 million people or 30 million homes, 3 people in each house, 90 million refugees with their shit thrown to the curb. And the city says you better get off there by morning or we're going to come by and take it to the dump. That's what they do. Why did it to me? I did know better and I couldn't stop it then. So we're going to talk about standing. We're going to talk about why there really isn't a case. You don't have a case right now. It's void. And it's void because you don't have a real person in interest, which means someone that has money invested in your loan and they're not getting paid back. There isn't one. And so the founders said that in order to sue another American, they didn't want to litigious society, just in order to sue. You know, we all think that you write some stuff up and then you take it down to the courthouse and you give it to the clerk and it's on, game on. And the judge is going to make you believe that too. It isn't game on yet, not at all. There is no case yet because in this thing they write, and it's hard to explain the difference between non-judicial and judicial. So I'm going to keep them separate as much as I can by saying borrower and lender and things like that instead of plaintiff and defendant. We're plaintiffs in non-judicial states. It's ridiculous, but that's what we are. And you're a defendant in a judicial state. Judicial is really just it's straight line. And non-judicial came about during the Great Depression. 26 states decided to be non-judicial so that banks could get houses back so they could not go broke as fast. It wasn't necessarily dishonest. You know, it's if somebody really owes the bank money and they die, then you have to sell the house, you know, because that's everybody's money in town, where it was. Now it's not. Now it's no telling what's going on. So I say that your case is void and it can't be fixed. And the judge's job is to look at what was written by whoever it is that says they're going to foreclose on you. The foreclosing party is what I'm going to call it. And I'll always say the foreclosing party because I don't know if we're not judicial or non-judicial, and I don't know if it's Mickey Mouse or if it's Goofy. I don't know. I know it's Goofy, I guess. So, in order to sue someone, you have to demonstrate that they've done something to you. In our case, and it's an injury, and it could be a broken leg, but not in loans and home mortgages. It's not even a home mortgage because mortgages are what you use in a judicial state. They use deed of trust in a non-judicial state. So in our cases, the foreclosing party in both of them, and we won't talk about the differences right now. In both cases, judicial and non-judicial, the foreclosing party has to write in their complaint, in their lawsuit, in their petition, whatever it's called. It's a complaint in federal level, and it's a complaint in state level a lot because they couldn't think of another word. So you want to sue somebody, and standing is called a threshold issue, which means that you have to have standing before you can walk into the court and present your beef, your complaint, your gripe, save your house, whatever. Um, and 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 has to do that in our case? It's going to be whoever owns your debt. So it's the lender, but all of us, all of you, the lender who's on your note, who was on your note, haven't seen your note. I haven't seen a note in 10 years. I've seen copies. I've seen bad copies. I've seen lies. I've heard lies. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about too. The most prevalent, let's just finish with standing first. It's called the constitutional doctrine of cases and controversies, that a judge cannot oversee a case that the plaintiff, the foreclosing party in our case, has to have proven already. They don't prove it as they go. They have to prove, and they have to have concrete and particularized evidence, which is a higher burden than beyond reasonable doubt. So they have to use a really hard burden of proof to prove that they own your loan and they're trying to collect money. So really it's the right to collect money, not the right to foreclose. For the right to foreclose means it's foreclosure, and that's an act of collection. What they're saying is if we have the right to collect money from Danny Hammond because he owes somebody money, might as well pay it to us. That's how loose it really is right now. That's not the rule. That's not the way. It's not the law. So they have to write that they've been injured, and then they have to write the proof that the injury is real. So it's an injury in fact. And they have to they have to prove the injury is real and that they should be able to collect the money, and they have concrete and particularized evidence. They then have to use the same burden of proof to prove that you, the borrower, you're the cause of their injury. They can fairly trace the causation of the injury to you. That has to be there. And it has to be concrete and particularized. It'd be an easy burden in 1994 when there were 49 foreclosures. I didn't finish that. In 2002, in Jackson County, Missouri, it had gone to 1,200 per month, 49 per year, and 1,200 per month. And this is all within 6 years. So what happened? Well, you got rid of the law that regulated Wall Street. And so was this a mortgage meltdown or was it a Wall Street meltdown? I only say Wall Street. Okay, so if you have proven that, then you can cross the threshold, like the groom carries the bride across the threshold. Then you can go into court and present your case. You haven't won it yet, but you've got pretty good proof, and the judge has to write that down. Somebody types it up, the determination. Then it has to be filed into your docket so that you can see it, and so the other side can see it. And so far, your only burden is to say I was not in default with these guys. Okay, their burden is to say that our money is in that house and he won't pay back. Theirs is a lot harder. Then why do they win all the time? How does this even last 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years? I kept people in their house for 7 or 8 years. The one that we got the $2.5 million Um, damages was those people called me. They had 3 days before their eviction, not their foreclosure, their eviction. And I kept them there for 6 years. Um, and that was a Missouri state judge, and he was doing the right thing. I watched him the whole time, and I'm still, you know, going, yeah, that's the way it used to be. It's how it was just with my group, and then everybody behind me. There's no way they can figure it out. Okay, so that proves standing and haven't done it, and therefore there is no case. So what are you going back in and complaining for? It's because you fought them so well and so long that there's a whole bunch of things happening and you're mad. You're mad at the attorneys. You want to get them all, and you think you have to. You think they're going to take my house if I don't find a way to get all these guys. They're going to take my house. And of course you're upset about that. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the way it happens. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to say from the beginning, there wasn't in a non-judicial state, there was not a non-judicial foreclosure because there couldn't be. Yes, you can do it without going into the court, but you got to be the right person. You got to be the one that put the money in it, don't you? Well, no, nobody's making them do that. So we're going to make them do that. So you have to have, um, um, you have to write down. They have to be written down, and so really what we're doing is we're starting out. They're making us sue them in a non-judicial state, and they're suing us in a judicial state in order to say that they're foreclosing, they're taking the house. They're not going to give you the money that the law says they have to. And that's the end of it because you don't know what to do about it. Well, there's a remedy for all of that as we go. And we're going to be talking about, standing, injury, constitution, due process. That's the combination. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that, and it's going to be the judge because there's no one else is real. Everyone else is just got a job in Mickey Mouse's costume. They're not Mickey Mouse. The judge is Mickey Mouse. I didn't know I was going to say that till I did. Um, the so what we're going to say is, and we'll have to sue the judge, and we have to do it right away. We have to do it fast. It has to be brutal. It has to be astonishing to him. And that was the last part I put into this. That's what I've been doing. And I just astonished the judge, really, 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 a state judge. His brain actually broke. He went and did things to the people who were still in the house, because he awarded unlawful detainer. He couldn't do that because they didn't write down why they had a right to collect money. And it was U.S. Bank, which is about, in at least 40% of all the deals that I've looked at. So if the unlawful detainer judge, this is before the other case was going on, the wrongful foreclosure case is going on. This guy gives unlawful detainer and awards the house back to U.S. Bank, who never had it in the first place. The borrower did. So you can't give it back to, and he just declared it. And so he didn't have anything to write down. He didn't have anything to have typed up. He didn't have anything to have filed into the case. So we sued him. Deprivation of civil rights. That's what the case is. It's the case of deprivation of civil rights, and we don't care much about the SLSs and Wells Fargo flashing through. And what they're doing it with is when you hear anyone say the phrase assignment of the mortgage, assignment of the deed of trust, you can't do that. It can't be done. What they're doing is replacing the notes that they've lost or that they used wrongly, and now they can't produce them. They can't make you pay, and they're not the right people anyway. So we're not going to see notes. So if you had the note and you'd written everything on it should be written on, and you paid money every month, no problem. But this didn't even start out that way. You were targeted probably. Almost all the houses I'm seeing now are you can see the process started at closing. I can look at your closing stuff and I can say, see, they already were assigning your mortgage. They were already assigning your deed of trust. So the assignment of a deed of trust can't be done. And you're going to hear people on TV tell you, now you got to do that right. Well, you can't do it right. It doesn't even make any sense. The deed of trust is not part of the note. The note is the contract. The note is the evidence of the debt. The debt is the thing that's worth the money. The mortgage or the deed of trust, which is really the security instrument, is the agreement on what will be the easy collateral, the easy thing they can get from you that you'll agree to and they agree to. So they can take your house pretty easy, but if you still owe them money, it's a lot harder to get a judgment. If you get a judgment, I know guys that live a half a lifetime just moving their money from bank to bank, or banking, two guys bank it together. You both own the account. Nobody can take any of the money because which money is yours and which is just the guy's. But the point there being is that they can't get a judgment and they can't go to court and they can't cross the threshold. And so that's what we say from the beginning. We attack from the beginning with there isn't a case. And then the main thing is that I'm going to say still the first thing you're going to need to do is go down to the recorder's office in your county and see what's been recorded since the last time you even thought about it, which is going to be never. You're going to have recordings that might be, let's say you got a loan 10 years ago. There might have been assignments of your mortgage or assignments of your deed of trust done that day that you don't know about. And they're no good. They don't work. It's not possible. It's not currency. They have no value. The note is essential. It's the evidence of the debt. The mortgage is incidental. You don't have to have collateral. Like if my son wanted to start a business and I have $30 million, or my friend wants to, and I have $30 million and he wants to borrow $500,000. I go, yeah, I want to see this, but I'm not going to put his house on a document that if he loses in the business because I've got $30 million. You don't have to have collateral. You do if you're a real bank, but we're not dealing with real banks, and these guys just want a boat. That's my phrase. That's my slang. Okay, that's all I'm going to do right now because I'm kind of just warning you, find that stuff because you can't start your case without knowing what's been recorded. You don't know what they're holding. They've got something and it's not going to be, they don't talk about the note anymore. Now it's the assignment of the security instrument. So yours was what? Do you even know yet? It's probably a deed of trust or a trust deed. And those are the same words. They should have just called them security instruments all along, and they really never should have done non-judicial foreclosure. And if they had to do it during the Great Depression, it was over. It's way over now. Why do we still do it? So assignments, and we're going to say there's no standing. And if there is no standing, then the court has no subject matter jurisdiction. There has to be standing. To have standing, you have to have already proven that you have an interest and you've got your concrete and particularized evidence. So standing is the component of subject matter jurisdiction that makes it go. So if a judge moves your case forward without anyone proving standing, then he had no subject matter jurisdiction. If he moves the case forward with no subject matter jurisdiction, then he is at war with the Constitution. He's committed treason. And I can find that for you in a dozen Supreme Court cases. The judge wasn't a judge when he moved the case forward if he did not have subject matter jurisdictions. And what they'll tell you is, I've had judges say this to me, I determined it already. No, the judge does not determine. The judge doesn't have the discretion to determine his own discretion. The judge does not have the ability to determine subject matter jurisdiction. He can only see it. He reads it. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. But he doesn't judge us. They shouldn't have been called judges. They're referees. They're arbitrators. And the idea that they get a robe and they're sitting up really high, um, that's stupid. Because it makes them they get to believe that they start believing it. That's the problem with the Constitution right now is that we believed in it and now we're starting to doubt it. We believed in our judiciary. I did, and I'm I do I doubt the Supreme Court? I thought the Supreme Court lived on a cloud and sang with angels, and it turned out that they get bribed for millions of dollars too. Um, how do you get that back? You know. So that's it for now. I'm going to do. I'll do tomorrow and Sunday. I hope to have um, a schedule of what it'll cost, how long I think it'll take, and what I'll do. And if nobody likes it, then I get to quit. And so I win either way. I want to do my house now. I've got kids, I've got grandkids. Fannie Mae foreclosed on $3 million worth of investment property that my wife and I had built investment property, sold it, kept the money, then used the money and paid cash. And we had $3 million worth of really, really nice duplexes. And Fannie Mae foreclosed on them. No loan, didn't have a loan, paid cash. There was no loan. Okay, so who are you going to believe? Me when I tell that lie, or are you going to believe these guys when they tell you that you owe them money? And the person's name even on your note, that's not the name of the lender. The lender had to be the one that gave you money. What they did was they told some small broker to put their name on it, and then they'd make it all right later. That's partly where your notes are. That's one of the places. And there's others, but we'll talk about that later. So I don't have an engineer still, but I know where the button is, but I haven't figured out how to do that and say, well, goodbye, but and make it look like I'm not reaching for the button, but I am.